Hello and welcome to New Geometry. I'm George Leoniak, and today I've got an exciting video for you all about the heptagon. I'm going to go over 7 methods plus a new method that I've come up with in the past 2 weeks that I call the 7th Heaven method. And this one is what I believe to be the most accurate version of a heptagon drawing. And I'm going to compare the other ones that are out there in this slideshow. So join me for this 7th Heaven video. Let's jump over to the slide share. And I'm going to use some criteria in this presentation. The main thing I'm going to focus on is this 571 degree angle. And it's considered to be impossible to draw the 7-sided polygon with an unmarked straight edge and compass. And so we're going to take a look at the techniques that have been proposed throughout history that come up with fairly accurate heptagons. And none of them in this presentation are 100%. So there is a mathematical proof that proves that. So we're within those boundaries. There are 2 different types of heptagon stars that can be created here. And we're going to use a lot of this circle construction as well, especially with the method that I'll be presenting. So here's this is a hand-drawn heptagon here that I've erased the underlying lines, so you're not able to see what was done here. But this is a very accurate heptagon that was based on this method that I'll be showing a comparison method to this one at the end of this video, with some exciting results towards the end. So I'm going to go through this because I know it looks like a lot of circles and a lot of lines, and how do you get from the heptagon within this? So I did break this down into a few steps over here that will probably be doable for a more someone who's into sacred geometry or has drawn before, but I've kind of grouped some things together. So I just want to overview this just to show how sacred geometry applies to drawing this version of the heptagon. So we're going to have the Vesica Pisces, and then we're going to do our root 3 through the fish bladder here. And then we're going to put in our 4 directions, the 4 circles off the central circle. And that's pretty much the main setup. All the black dots here are what you need to construct the rest of this drawing. So from here, what we want to do is I've erased took out the Vesica circles and the circles that give the 4 petals. But from this point, we're going to use what I've been talking about in my previous method, is how to get the phi ratio. So the phi ratio is intimately connected to this method, because if you draw a square within the central circle based on these 4 points, and you extend the line out to the black circle here, which is the circle that is on the vesica, that will divide this line into phi. The blue to red is in phi proportion. Now from that, we're going to draw a line that's going to connect to these red circles. Now those red circles are at the ends of the golden rectangle right here. So we draw the circle there, and we draw another one, we draw the line through the bottom of the square. I know this is a lot of steps all at once. And that will give us the base of the heptagon. Now we take that measurement, we bring it up to the top, we get a circle up there. So we've got 3 heptagon circles. And then we have to go over to this bottom lower point, draw a big circle that connects to the purple circle, and on the other side, the other purple circle. And then that will give us the 2 other circles we need, and then they cross these points here and give us the last circles. And that produces the 7 sides of the heptagon. Now I know if you're a beginner, that seems like a lot. These still are quite a lot of steps, even for an intermediate person in sacred geometry. But the reason we did all that, and I'm so surprised how it came about, because I tested it out for its accuracy in GeoGebra and discovered that this is a 99.975% accurate heptagon. And it has three different angles here. Remember, our target for the interior angle is 128.571. So I was pretty excited when I got 128.579, 128.543 on four of the angles, and 128.623 on two of the angles. And, when I did all the calculations to kind of average this all out, it came up to 99.975, which I was completely thrilled with the level of accuracy that came up on that. And there's another way that we're going to look in this video of how to assess, just basically on a visual assessment of the heptagon overlaid on a perfect heptagon. So here's our seventh Heaven heptagon. And the blue line at the bottom, you see this blue line is kind of grayish. Well, that's because I took in the drawing program, I created a regular heptagon that is perfect based on the computer's assessment of drawing heptagon, which has the perfect angles, and laid it right over top of the seventh Heaven heptagon, basically from this edge. I just dragged up to seven-pointed star, the heptagon shape, seven-sided polygon, and those edges of the polygon are just ever so slightly off of the main version. So that's a 99.75%. So all the other methods, we're going to look at 6 other methods. I'm going to show you that just so you can visually see it without as many numbers getting in the way. Now, the reason this came about is actually through my studies of the polyhedra. Those are the platonic solids or any type of, convex, concave form that is, here is the icosahedron, the blue form in the middle. And it just so happened that our seventh Heaven method here overlaid the drawing of this blue icosahedron in the middle. And where does it overlay? Well, remember this line that I had to draw to get the point for the bottom of the heptagon? I know this looks busy. And if I move this out of the way, let's just do a comparison like that. This black line is the same angle as this edge of the heptagon. Now remember, the icosahedron is a 20-sided form. So we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sides in each of these triangles, isosceles triangles. And then we've got our different versions of triangles there. And then we've got 12 more on the back. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on this side, 8 on the back. And then we got 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we have our total of 20 sides. So this method actually came about due to its relationship with the icosahedron drawing. And I'll show you here in this drawing as well, that the line, the black line that gives us the bottom of the heptagon is right along the line of the icosahedron. It's the same angle that goes through. So this is a better version to show it. Now this is going to be modified a little bit later in the video, but this is how I started this one off. So remember, this is our kind of basic setup with getting the phi ratio, right? The blue to red is phi. We're drawing that line. And that's the same line as the icosahedron edges within this drawing. And it just sits right on the icosahedron as a two-dimensional heptagon. And I don't know what the three-dimensional relationship is. Okay, so that's the first seventh Heaven method that I'm going to show. I'm going to show you the modified version that I discovered this morning in just a minute. But the main takeaways is this is a pretty accurate heptagon at 99.975%. So the next method that was out there that was the most probably popular method and the most accurate was John Michel's heptagon in a circle at 99.9% accurate. And I believe that's 99.95. Let me just check. I think that's in the next slide when I did more of the calculations, 99.953. So, I mean, we're kind of, splitting hairs, and some of this is going to come down to the ease of the method, right? And this is a sweet little method that's based on the square, And also in square view, I like to call it, we're dealing with the 4 circles to set up the corners of the square. And then we're going to take these large circles, which really you only need these arcs to get this V. And then the V actually divides gives you the point on the circle to start to work your way around and step your way around, or step from both sides to finally meet at the bottom. So this is where the inaccuracy is within this, and we can demonstrate that in the overlay of the perfect heptagon, which is the light gray line that's just below the tippy top in these corners here, as it slowly kind of distorts its way around just slightly as it goes. But still, the most accurate method that I've discovered out there is this one. And there could be more that I'm unaware of. So we're going to go through the next method. And these are from the book, Jon Allen's Drawing Geometry. A nice little book that just goes over many constructions, primarily of the polygons and other techniques of drawing that are related to those. So this is the next method that is also one that draws the heptagon in a circle. And it's basically, designed on the seed of life, and drawing the lines through the petals to divide it into 6 dividing it into a hexagon. And then we'll put another circle on the inside that touches that division, and then that will give us a division, a spot at the circumference of the black circle, and then we can step our way around once again. Now, the stepping method, which I call it, is where you get a measurement and then you step your compass around. And I find that to be usually pretty imprecise as you work your way around to come back. It's usually off. But remember, these techniques are going to be a little bit off anyway, but it's hard to figure out how to kind of fudge that. So usually when I do a method like this, I'll step it this way, and then I'll step it this way to the left and then to the right. And then my inaccuracy will kind of be compounded at the base of the heptagon. So this is a 99.79%. Here is what that looks like in a perfect heptagon overlay. So, when we get off of 99.9%, we're going to start to see quite a bit of more discrepancy between the perfect one and the the perfect heptagon and the method that's being used. Another one here is method 3, and this is a 99.26%, also from Jon Allen's book. Another one that does the heptagon in the circle. It's another stepping method that's based off of the base, using these lines now that are set up to create a black circle here, which gives us the edge of the heptagon down here. And then we work our way around once again. Stepping in C and D are not going to match up. So in that case, C was on the vertical line, or C and D crisscross there as I step from one to the left up and then one to the right, and they overshoot the midpoint there on either side. So that's what this one looks like, as you can see as I step to the left and step to the right. If you only step in one direction from this one all the way around, your heptagon is going to be tilted off to one side. They'll never meet on the vertical line. So there's that method. So we're going to continue on. I'm just kind of zipping through a few. I found this one on Wikipedia and took out one of the Jon Allen ones that were in there that was based on the Vesica Pisces, which was very, really, really inaccurate. But this one has got a 0.2% inaccuracy to it, the error. So this one is very simple to create, and I was thrilled to just learn about the method, because this is Albrecht Durer's heptagon method. He's done a lot of drawings on pentagons and the pentagon hexagon relationship. And he wasn't doing this with the precision of an iPad like I am to get precise, or have GeoGebra to then get all the angle measurements and everything like that. So just very simple to take the Vesica and take half the length of the Vesica here, right? And take that and then step your compass around just with the blue all the way around. or you can do it from both sides like I like to do and meet and get the error at the bottom. And with that, you come up with, you know, fairly accurate heptagon, but let's check that out. So there would be Durer's method. And here's the gray line of the perfect heptagon with the shared base. And, you know, it slowly gets misaligned as we go on further. So, you know, we're looking at some of the best of heptagon drawings that are out there. And we are got some new ones to look at that, you know, researchers out there like me and some of my favorite, like Frank Chester, which of course I have a few videos with Frank and I in dialogue together about sacred geometry, as well as just me working with the Chestahedron, a whole series of videos on the golden Chestahedron, as I call it. So Frank had a method in the back of his book, NEW Sacred Geometry, New Sacred Geometry. And I constructed this one to test it out too. And it's a really precise, pretty accurate method. It's amazing to see how Frank works, you know, and in terms of how he discovered the methods to find the red circle or part of the setup and how this line connects to this. You have to look at the method in the back of the book. I forget all the steps, but you start working these blue circles around eventually, and eventually that's going to meet back up. But what happened that I discovered with that when I did test out the heptagon based on the blue edge is as we're stepping our way around, for some reason, the whole heptagon starts to kind of shift off center line, right? So this one, you can't kind of step from the left and the right to kind of meet at the base and get that inaccuracy at the bottom. So you have everything vertical. So this one, because of the method, as it kind of swirls around from the left to the right, if you look at the blue circles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's kind of vortexing around like that. And that in the end will produce this kind of twisted heptagon as we go. So I didn't decide to draw, I didn't draw that in the GeoGebra program to get the difference. I'm just going with the visual on that. I'm guessing that Frank's method there is probably 99.9% or maybe 99.8, but it's definitely up there because we can just kind of say, well, if this one over here was, let's see, John, this was 99.79, so that's almost 99.8. And there was the inaccuracy at the base. So, you know, I'm imagining Frank's method is probably also a 99.9. It's just working its way around, is compounding the inaccuracy there. Now, we also have another one that was done by Robert Grant and his webpage, a new discovery of his. And he says that this Da Vinci square method is 100% accurate, disproving the mathematical proof. Now, I tried to recreate what he had shown from the steps. Well, there isn't even any really steps in his heptagon method there. It's very tough to see what he's showing in the article that he wrote about the new discovery of this perfect heptagon. But I did find a video of him demonstrating the method with the Da Vinci square, and it's only a 3-minute video, but the best that I could tell is where he's placing his compass is at these intersection points along the Da Vinci square. This is what he calls this. And taking the long goldish yellow as the radius of the circle and taking this measurement to be the edge length of our heptagon. And I did this in 2 ways. So to the left, I did the step around method because you're basically taking measurements from the square, Da Vinci square. And maybe he has a modified version of this that I missed, or maybe I put the compass in the wrong place, but I did come up with a very close heptagon in both of these. So I'm imagining I'm somewhere close to it. And if there any error on my part, because I'd really be rooting for Robert Grant to get the 100% accurate heptagon. And I'll do a follow-up video if he is able to show me how that works or what I missed, because I would love to see a method work that will be able to produce that. So I did the step around method just to get back to the drawings here. And then I also took it from the central point and worked down to here and worked down to here. Like I said, I kind of just compound the inaccuracy at the base of the drawing. And here was the GeoGebra version of the heptagon. And we've got, yes, I'm just basically showing the same thing of setting up the square and doing the drawing and then figuring out the angles in here, which in my next slide I will show what those were. So for these angles, we had 128.494 all the way on either side. And remember, I compounded the error at the bottom, 128.763. So when I did my calculations to kind of get an average of all this, it came up with 99.914. So very, very precise, a totally awesome method to look at Da Vinci's square of the Vitruvian Man and figure out that just a couple extra lines within that drawing actually give you these two. But at least from what I can tell, it did not produce the 100% heptagon that he was aiming for. And I kind of like the notion that it is, considered impossible to do, because it does give the geometer a kind of some sort of lofty goal, seventh heaven goal to aim for. And once we do claim that something is 100%, it's very easy for a young geometer, even younger than me or anybody in the future, that will then just say, oh, well, someone solved that, maybe I'll stop looking for a heptagon anymore. And I thought I had a method that I'll describe later. Let's just continue on with the seventh heaven method. I just kept looking, and this morning I discovered a new method. So there are new methods out there, right? So I say I've got 7 here. I'm going to show 8 in a second. But here's the heptagon that if I share the blue line, now this is if I step it around, right? Going around and around and around and around. And there is the perfect heptagon over top, but the heptagon of the blue lines will be off center because it shoots over the vertical line that would be through this. And then if we do just go from the left and the right, and that's just a technique I use, but it does help show a bit of a difference when we then show a perfect heptagon in relationship to the compounded error at the bottom. And maybe that's an incorrect way to do it. But the bottom line is I did test out the, I calculated the percentage of accuracy for both ways, either stepping around or compounding the error at the bottom. And the two were both the same, 99.914. So in the end, it really didn't matter whether you step around the compass or just compound the error out the bottom. So the method, let's give our results. Let's have our runners come up. We're going to call up the bronze medalist here, the Robert Grant heptagon with the overlay of the perfect heptagon here. And then we've got John Michell's heptagon here, and then we have the seventh heaven overlay here. So just having a little fun with this. But as I went through all the heptagon, they've come out for a heptathlon here, and I feel that it is important to acknowledge the level of accuracy that each of these heptagons have had to go through, this scrutiny of mathematical GeoGebra analysis. So I feel that they deserve some medals of honor for their willingness to go through my, my testing. So these are the results that I've showed. I've just kind of grouped them all together. Here are the angle measurements. Now these all have 2 angle measurements, and this has 3, and the seventh heaven approach. And that's because I am not stepping around or compounding the error with the new geometry seventh heaven technique. That is spread out amongst the whole drawing, right? So in that method with the circles where they overlapped and intersected, which is all done with the unmarked compass and straight edge, there's a little bit of error over here, a little bit of error along a whole thing, rather than just stepping around and compounding error at the bottom or overshooting. So that's why we have a little bit more spread out. Now, maybe that's not acceptable to other geometers because I didn't step, but I think that it is the most accurate heptagon that I've seen. So the technique is difficult, and as of this morning, this was the video. So up till about 5 a.m., first thing I did when I woke up was saw the next method, which happened to be based on the icosahedron. And I said, well, if the icosahedron is in there, then I know that the golden circles, and as if you've seen any of my other videos, I'm very much a proponent of working with golden ratio circles within the drawing of the seed of life or with any type of pattern. So that basically means that this large circle that I'm going around here is in phi proportion to the circle that's contained within it. And in many of my other videos, I go off on so many ways that you can work with these golden circles. I believe it's the totally revolutionary technique to work within all the sacred geometry patterns that exist, totally bringing them to life. And this demonstrates it in a major way. Now, so this is the golden circle seventh heaven method. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've got an eighth method, but I only want 7 methods in my video. Because it's the seventh, seven polygons to compare. So I was like, okay, well, I got an eighth now. So I have to go to GeoGebra and draw this all up just to see what's going on. So I draw up the technique and I'm like, ooh, this technique is really nice. I like the way it feels. It's very easy to work with. It's familiar because I am used to working with these golden circles because I draw all the platonic solids and stellations and many, many forms. The icosahedron, the 90-sided form I can draw with this, which I'm going to do in probably my next video. So I was like, great, let's just do the drawing. And here are the angle measurements: 128.579, 128.543, 128.623. And I'm scratching my head. I'm like, geez, those seem pretty similar. Let me do the calculations. 99.975% accurate. Get out. Really? That is amazingly the same. These two seventh heaven heptagon methods produce the same results. And I was just, as that soaked into me, I was like, how could that be? These are so different looking, right? But that is phi. You know, that is when we work with phi ratio. Because remember, this first seventh heptagon method was where my mind was at the time. I was working with the golden rectangle in the center and connecting it to the root 3 and then drawing these circles and doing the line. And I noticed that was the icosahedron line. Remember I showed you earlier in the video that it was the icosahedron was connected to this? Well, I was like, well, if that is true, then I should be able to draw this with the icosahedron in the golden circles pattern. And sure enough, the link that needed to be discovered was this little red phi ratio circle, which is given in the drawing right here. It's in this petal, and that petal is very important because it's 2 golden triangles in there. So I took that measurement and drew the red circle in there, and it touched the tip of the heptagon that I thought was this one. I wasn't sure yet, but it touched the same spot. So then when I did all the calculations, it turned out to reproduce the heptagon with the same techniques in this method, and it's easier to draw. So we can do it both ways, but I want that really to soak in, just that working with the phi ratio has such a superior interconnected vast intelligence that from 2 seemingly different drawings, because of that phi ratio in relationship to the square root of 3 transposed to the golden ratio circle drawing here, I came up with, and this was to not just 3 digits at the end, it was the 15 max that GeoGebra gives you in every digit after the decimal point was the same for both of these. And maybe there's some error further on, but 15 digits of significance past the decimal point was just mind-blowing to me, that phi ratio was found, was the unifying link between these two methods. So the two are tied with the gold medal for the first place, and the golden circles did it again with the golden circles seventh heptagon method. So if you're one of my apprentices out there, I imagine you're probably like, whoa, because I just taught them this last week. And now we can do it this way. And it is easier to draw. So I'll be just kind of reviewing that quickly in our next session. So we've got the golden circles, seventh heaven, and here's the icosahedron connection, just so you can get a sense of where the icosahedron is. Now, remember, we're not used to viewing the icosahedron like this because it's in square view, which is based on, when I call something square view, you see the large square that is created by the four-leaf petal, four petals here. Well, that then, with the phi ratio circles, allows us to easily draw a perfect two-dimensional representation of the icosahedron from that view. And here are the red lines that are going across. And then that is now giving us, where it intersects the golden ratio circle, the points where to start our drawing, right? So for the heptagon. And then we do the same thing. We've got that circle, we transpose it up to the top, where it is originating from the location where that golden ratio circle comes down. And then I can do the rest of the steps like I did before. So I think that looks very sweet, and it is integrated into a form. So it's not a disconnected drawing. It's a kind of unity drawing between all the work that I do with the golden circles and the polyhedra and the platonic solids with the seventh heaven seven-sided polygon, just infused right into that at the 99.975% accuracy. So I'm just totally thrilled with that. What else do I have for you here? Here is the hand-drawn method that I did first thing in the morning. As soon as I realized the discovery, there is such a simple method to do. Because I was concerned about the original seventh heaven method, that it was through a couple test runs with apprentices, seeing that there was some inaccuracy because there's a lot of moving parts. But the golden circles is such a nice knit template that it allows us to transfer this golden ratio circle, which is this measurement right here, up to here and lay out the whole thing. So the heptagon is going to be a little bit smaller. It's not contained within a circle, and I'm not concerned about that because it totally integrates with the icosahedron relationship in the golden circle. So we've got the golden circle seventh heaven. Now, I just want to add a few things about the golden circles because recently I've been sharing much about them over the past year. And probably the past 9 months, this diagram, the golden circle seed of life, as I call it. And I've been saying there's pentagons in there, and we can even draw the heptagon in this if we wanted to, but it's easier to do it probably in square view. I haven't tried it in this version yet. But recently, I have some connection with a few different people that finally this drawing made its way over to Robert Grant, and he verified that the method is one of two, one that he discovered as well, to draw this novel method that he called it of the pentagon at 100% accuracy with 108-degree angle. So I just want to put that in there, that the things I've been sharing is being, at least this has been peer reviewed, and I highly invite anybody who wants to test out anything that I show for the heptagon as well. If you're unclear on the instructions and you would like to test it out for yourself, please contact me, because I think it's really important for the community of geometers to get into outside of the smaller circles, but there's so many brilliant geometers out there that have really not many relationships with other people to peer review their work. And over at my New Geometers Facebook group, there's starting to be more and more of that going on. And people are posting different things and sharing their work, and I sometimes check out things for people if they're not sure of their drawing, if it did produce a 108-degree angle or whatever it is they're looking at. And I think that that's really important for the community of geometers to kind of move into more culture around it, of sharing each other's work and looking into it. So I highly am inviting the peer review process to even the amateur geometers that are out there, much like George Odom, which I talked about in my previous video, an amateur geometer that was working with Coxeter. Behind the scenes, there's so many George Odoms out there, and I'd like to see if I could find more of them so we could share more of our work together. So anyway, main point with this, method of the golden circle seed of life does contain that pentagon, and the peer review process is totally important for our work as geometers, as we have new ways to test out our results and their accuracy in very simple ways that people like me can figure out how to do in programs like GeoGebra. I wanted to just make one little plug here for two videos that I did 6 months ago, I guess. And the two of them, amazingly, they're two 9-pointed stars that are not nonagon polygons. And this one here also came about due to the relationship to the icosahedron, another 99.9% accurate 9-pointed star that is really easy to draw. So if you're interested in that, that's in the Doing Sacred Geometry section to draw that. And you'll learn about the platonic solid from the seed of life, the icosahedron, how to draw that from this, because it's just basically extending the lines. So that's looking at the nonagon. And another one that is considered impossible to do 100% accurately. And here's another version that was even more accurate than this one, that was based on the golden hexagon and trisecting an angle, which is also an impossible thing to do with the compass and unmarked straight edge. But I did discover one in the flower of life that did a nonagon to a greater than 99.99 something percent accuracy with this trisected angle. So those are some follow-up videos, just because I think these are some exciting terrain for geometers to explore. And I just wanted to let you know that those videos were out there, and would love some more peer review on those too, because the trisecting the angle one, it was just blew my mind how that discovery came about. So that is the 7-sided polygon, the heptagon video with the 7th heaven method and the golden circle 7th heaven method. This is an ancient symbol that's been around thousands of years, and I just feel really super excited and grateful to make a contribution to this pattern language of sacred geometry. So I do hope that this method, especially that golden circles version, because I do believe it's simple enough to do, finds its way into the current of geometers. Test it out, work with it. And if you're ever interested in learning to draw sacred geometry, I have apprenticeships, I have the New Geometry Patreon, and you can just learn so much just from subscribing to this channel, because I'm sharing so much material open. So if you already have some experience with drawing sacred geometry, like I see many other people do, just pick up and run with a few of the little things that I share. Go for it too. So I really appreciate you watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed checking out those methods and enjoyed the comparison. Please feel free to leave comments. And until the next video, much love and peace. I'll see you. Bye.